Can you give us a little song so the audience can see what Casper does? I love it. It means a lot to us for people showing that in real time of how special that the animal-human connection is. All right, guys, I am so excited. I am personally so excited for you to listen into this interview, but I'm also excited just because I want to have this conversation with Pam and Casper. And if you guys have not followed them on TikTok or Instagram, you are going to want to after this episode. Pam, Casper, thanks so much for joining us today.
We're so happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
I'm so glad we could make this work. You have really exploded in the last couple years, transitioning from a completely different life with Broadway and acting and all of the things that you've done. You've got on America's Got Talent. You and Casper performed and had a standing ovation from the judges. Tell us a little bit about how these last couple years have been with you guys just coming on this new scene in the world.
Well, sure. TikTok really became super popular in during the pandemic. Yes, that's right. You know about TikTok. It became really popular during the pandemic, and we kind of just joined because everyone was joining. And then in 2021, a video of ours went super viral, and we were surprised and excited. And then America's Got Talent found us on TikTok and reached out, and we did that show, which was it's so surreal to watch it, to be like, oh, that's us, when it pops up on our feeds and stuff. But it's been a whirlwind, and now we're just, we're working on this TV show concept. We just did we released last year a holiday album of us singing a bunch of holiday songs. And then this year we made an album that's called like Lullabies for Your Dog. And it's all original music. And then we're also working on a children's book. So it doesn't just start and stop with TikTok, which is cool.
Yeah, well, but I think everyone has this dream of they want to produce a piece of content and it goes viral. And then for some reason they think, this is going to be so great. But I think what most people, because I had a very small glimpse of that, not to your level, but I posted on TikTok also in the business space and it went viral in like 5 days. And a lot of things came from it. And so, but there's also like an engine that has to be built in order to keep up with that. Otherwise, it's a missed opportunity because I know a lot of people that produce content, they make no money doing it. It actually costs them money to produce content and show up all the time. And so there's a whole back end that you obviously had to figure out as you were going in order to try to capture it and leverage this attention. Can you maybe share a little bit about what that looked like?
Well, we really didn't have a prime example because there wasn't, that other woman with her singing dog that made it, on social media. Like we didn't really have a path to kind of follow. So we just did what we knew people were responding to. It takes a lot of trial and error. It takes a lot of posting things that you're not sure are going to work out. Maybe you're trying something new. Maybe it's not just us singing together. Maybe we do a skit or something, and you kind of see how the analytics react to that. And it's a lot of posting, a lot of consistency. That's the thing. I think where people make their mistake is they they post and then they wait a week, or they post and they wait a couple weeks. And it's like, no, you really gotta keep posting, because it's like throwing up a bunch of pasta against a fridge and seeing what sticks.
It's so true. What have you found is your cadence? Do you guys post a certain frequency, amount a day?
I generally post in the mornings when right before I start work. So I post it and then I'm like, okay, that life is over here. Now on to this life. And you just kind of see through people's lunch breaks, through when they're bored at work and scrolling through Instagram and TikTok before they go to sleep at night. There's lots of research you can do online to find when certain videos hit. the best. And it all is according to your demographic too, of who's most interested in your videos.
Yeah. And is that something that you have learned? I mean, you just like rattled that off so beautifully. And those are all legitimate points that, you do kind of just have to find your cadence. And it does take a lot of experimenting, unfortunately, to do that. But once you're doing it, like you've had to figure all this out, right? You don't have a marketing background. You don't know social media, like the algorithms or anything, right? So some of this has just been trial and error.
Yes, 100%. It's been a whirlwind. And then you look at other animal videos and you kind of compare and contrast, or you look at music videos and you compare and contrast, because our brand is very comedy, music, and animals. Like those are the three things we hit. And with that comes different ways of engaging with the public too.
Hmm.
You just learn. You learn by doing.
Yeah, it's so true, right? And that's where everyone's like, well, what's the hack to go viral? It's like, well, number one, everybody's audience, like think of your audience compared to mine, right? So
Yeah,
different. So
so
although
different.
what works for you, pieces of it might work for me or the person watching right now, pieces of it might work, but there are certain components that are just very unique to what you're trying to do.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And so
Correct.
has there been anything with, obviously you have a co-star and sometimes your co-star wants to probably perform and sometimes he's not as cooperative. Is there a
Well,
challenge
yes.
with that?
Well, actually, funny you should say. Today he's being very extra, and it's hard with a dog. They have, a temperament that you can't predict unless they're very, very well trained. And Casper is not very, very well trained, but I have learned how to get him to sing on cue and kind of read his behavior as far as performing. But right now he's like treat centric, so he's
Yes.
looking everywhere for a treat. But yeah, it's hard. You can't predict. And when we got asked to do America's Got Talent, I was very nervous because I didn't know what you were gonna do. I didn't know if he was just
Yeah.
gonna not sing or what. Come here, come here. He's just gonna bark. Whether or not he was gonna sing or whether he might have an accident on stage, you kind of
Yeah.
go into this very nervous, not knowing how the animal will be unpredictable.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about America's Got Talent because obviously that, like you said, surreal moment. They find you, so they do a direct pitch. This wasn't something that you were looking to do. And then what's that whole process look like?
So I was the only time Casper had performed in front of an audience at this time was at like a work talent show. He sang and our 30 coworkers went nuts, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. This could be something." And then we got the call, and I was like, I don't know how he would do with that many people and the pressure and all that stuff. And he doesn't really do well with strangers because sometimes chihuahuas can get protective and aggressive. And then we did it, and he did so great. And one of the only reasons I decided to do it was because it was the pandemic, so the audience was cut in half. It wasn't as many people around. It seemed like a perfectly good opportunity to kind of see how he'd do, and he nailed it. He was so good.
That's so great. So you guys go out. Did you have to like go through other auditions before you got to the judges or do you go straight there?
We went straight there. There was like one tech rehearsal performance, and that was it. It was right in front of Simon and Sophia, Heidi, and Howie.
So right there you go out, you're doing it
Yeah.
right in front of everyone. And then
Yes.
what happens after? So you get a standing O,
Well,
everybody's cheering.
well, I learned how to breathe again. I was the most nervous. Oh boy, buddy. I was the most nervous that I had ever been for anything in my entire life.
Oh,
And my voice was so shaky and I was so nervous. And he was just not nervous at all. But afterwards, after the crew and some of the people saw us, they'd come up to us and be like, "Oh, your act was great." Like Howie, I know he came up to us afterwards and was
oh,
like, "You had such a great act." And I was like, "Oh, thank you so much." And we
oh,
had to come back and do a couple, B-roll stuff later in
yeah.
the week. But other than that, it was a pretty insane experience for sure.
I bet. And did that have a direct link to increase your following from there? Like, how much did that impact the following that you
Not
already
as
had?
much as I not as much as I had thought it would be, because it's such a TV show advertisement, you can't really click on your TV to take you to the Instagram and stuff. Our stuff really grew on social media through other large accounts posting our posts, reposting them. That's really how we grew on social media, but in the eye of the public, I'd go to like a Sephora to get a lipstick and someone would be like, I saw you on America's Got Talent. So that's been pretty cool.
So it's almost like the show increased brand awareness, but didn't actually drive direct followers. And the reposting has. Was that strategic? Like, did you strategically go out for partnerships to repost?
No, not at all. This was just luck of the draw. And that's also what I've learned specifically with TikTok is that there's not a whole lot of rhyme or reason with TikTok. It's just kind of you post and you cross your fingers. I've noticed with Instagram it's a little different. Facebook is a little different. Each social media engine is different from the other one. But no, it wasn't strategic. It was just kind of since we had no example to follow, we just kind of went with the flow and figured it out from there.
That's great. And so you're posting on there and you've got America's Got Talent. You now have an album, you have a children's book, you have all of these things that are coming from it. But you said that's kind of that job's done and you go to work. What's work? What do you have a day job still?
I do. I work as an HR rep at a law firm in downtown LA, every little girl's dream job. And I'm very lucky that even though I've been a playwright since I was 17 and pursuing theater and film and creative stuff outside of the 9 to 5, I've been able to also build a work resume with office management and operations and HR to kind of make sure that I can do both since the creative world is just so unpredictable.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would assume the creative world's unpredictable. The social media world's unpredictable. Casper can be
Very.
unpredictable. Is there any funny story or something that happened that maybe you can give us a little BTS behind the scenes of like the real what happens behind the actual production of the piece of content?
Well, honestly, my favorite part is the behind the scenes stuff. And I love when I can, because he's not a one take wonder all the time. Every once in a while we'll do it and I'll be like, good job, like you nailed it. And sometimes it does take him a little bit, but the behind the scenes, the trial and error when edited together, watching all like a blooper reel is can be really funny with him. And his noises change. They're never the same noise. He'll sometimes sound like he's actually talking or trying to have a conversation, or sometimes he's just screaming. It varies.
Now,
It
did you
varies.
have
But
to
yeah,
teach him this? Did you teach him how to do this? Like how to sing or like did he just jump in one day?
he did. So it's kind of an interesting backstory. He didn't have much of a voice as a puppy. It took him a while to kind of find his bark. People would come to the door and we'd hear him want to like bark, but it would come out as
Aw.
like squeaks and squawks. And then one day I was playing guitar. I was writing some song for some musical that I was writing, and he just let out this sound, and me and my roommates kind of just like stopped. And then, throughout the years, we've kind of managed to at least get the radius of when he comes in narrowed down a little bit. But it again, it's trial and error with everything else.
And now you guys have an album that just was released. Tell us a little bit
Me
about
too.
that.
So it's all original music, but he does come in and sing with me and my best friend Dan, who I've known since 2008. We met in New York, and we've been writing songs and little funny, late night musicals together since then. And we were like, let's do an album with Casper. Like, let's release original music. So there's like 8 original songs on this album, and they're all about your dog or from your dog's perspective. And they're very pretty melodies and harmonies, but the lyrics are often ridiculous. And that's been the most fun part, is just the comedy of it and the subtle comedy. We don't want to hit them too hard with crazy stuff, but It's a cute, sweet little album, and people have been sending us videos of their dogs listening and falling asleep. It's
Oh,
called Lullabies for Your Dog, and it's
oh,
really it's a fun passion project for sure.
that's so cute. Where can we find this album?
You just go to bandcamp.com and you search Casper and Pam, and it'll bring you to both our albums, our holiday album and our newest one, and you'll see the difference in quality because we've learned a lot in the last year.
I love it. That's so great. We'll link all of that below. I want to chat too, just briefly, because you mentioned consistency with social media, which is so important, right? And for everyone watching or listening to this, that they are an entrepreneur, I mean, I always share entrepreneurs should be posting on multiple platforms. You never know where your audience is, especially in the beginning. Even if you have an existing clientele, somebody might find you on TikTok, but then they pop over to Instagram to learn more about you. You know, if you're brick and mortar, Facebook's really good for like local communities. Is there anything else outside of consistency that you can share that has either worked really well for you guys or that you would just offer for other people to learn from?
Well, look, I think, it all comes down to research. At the end of the day, you can't just expect things to fall into your lap or rely solely on luck. You have to do your research and look at what videos are doing well and look at what you're capable of. I mean, not everybody has a full production crew or the money to really produce high quality looking and sounding material, but if you look at our videos, we're a prime example of how you can do well without all the
Mhm.
bells and whistles. It's just, reading your audience. When you post a video, engage with your audience. That only helps the algorithm. And that's what I would say. It's just a lot of research, a lot of engagement, and just being very careful about who you engage with and how intensely you engage with someone, because it can be very exciting to have a fan, reach out and want to connect with you, but sometimes, you just have to be cautious because you don't know these people and they don't know you, and that is always the number one rule, to make sure that just take care of yourself because it's just you and your content out there. So research, be cautious, um, and have great ideas.
I love that. It's so valuable. And I think that it's important to what you touched on is be cautious because I do think most people have good intentions, but not all. Have you had to deal with hater? I mean, it's different, right? Like I think in my world, I feel like there's a lot of thankfully, I don't deal with a lot, but I know other people that deal with a lot of haters and trolls, and I've had a share, but nothing's massively, significant. And I would think with a dog, it's lovely and it's fun and everybody loves it. But do you still have some trolls that come along? And if so, how do you deal with those?
Well, look, I will say this. Overall, the amount of positive feedback we get is overwhelming. I mean, we've had people who are struggling with, really hard times, people going through chemotherapy, cancer, and they'll say, your videos just put a smile on my face. And even right now, like my throat's closing up just talking about it because it's just like, oh my God, you just don't think about that stuff. But with all the good, of course, there's an occasional bad, and you tend to harbor on those. A lot of people are like, your dog hates that and you're abusing your dog, and they're screaming because they don't want to be doing it. And it's like, no, I've talked to several professional vets and trainers, and he's emulating a wolf pack howl, and he's excited to be singing with his mom. He loves to do it. If they don't like it, they remove themselves from the situation. And there's only so many times you can type that out and live in that negativity. So you just kind of have to take it with a grain of salt and move on, and know in your heart and in your gut what you're trying to do, and know that the majority of who you're reaching has been incredibly positive. It's weird when they comment on like your looks or your, like, there's been a lot of, you look better with makeup or you look better without makeup on. It's like, what? Why do you feel so entitled to comment on that? But people do behind their, computer screens and keyboards. They just feel so entitled to talk about anything they want. You just kind of have to, again, be confident in what you're doing and move forward from there.
Such great advice. And I don't know if it's just a female thing, but I feel like that happens all the time. If you don't do your hair, it's like, oh my gosh, your hair looks terrible. If you do it, you care too much. If you age
Yes.
gracefully in
You
today's
can't
world,
win.
you're
You
letting
cannot
yourself
win.
go. If you take
Yeah.
care of it and do some things to not age as much, then you're vain. It's like you can't win. So you just like, I love what you said, show up as you confidently. Understand that there's
Yes.
going to be a lot of people that are struggling with their own internal things that they're going to project onto you, but that doesn't change who you are and what you're trying to do in the world.
Totally. Yes.
And I love the
Absolutely.
what you said about, how people reach out to you like that are going through some really difficult times, because I think we don't often think about that, right? Like I think when we come from a place of doing this or these interviews or sharing content, and it's like, okay, well, what are we going to get? How many likes? How many engagements? We miss the hearts that are behind these devices and these screens that are either trying to escape or trying to get the answer to their problems, or just going through a really difficult time, and you put a smile on their face. Like that is worth everything.
It's very intense and it's so lovely because you're right. Like, I just have this weird dog that sings along with me. Like, that is how we started this whole thing. And then he and I really started bonding in an intense way while doing this. And I think a lot of people that resonated with a lot of people and how much they love their pets and their dogs. And then they want to reach out and they want to connect. And I love that so much. And I love when people come up to me or to us and say hi, and it's so incredible just to hear how these silly little videos make someone smile when they've just had the worst day. And that is why we keep doing it, ultimately that is why.
And I think when you really, and it's hard to do because of the vanity metrics, but I think when you as a human just really get connected to that purpose and not so much the analytics of every single piece, I feel like that's what keeps you going. Because like for me, I don't ever need to do this ever again. It's something that I do to like give back, because I didn't have a lot of the answers in business and I didn't have a lot of people to connect with when I was first starting out. So to me, this is more of a give back piece than it is, in order to do it. But when I remember that person that was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that you could do this. And I've been struggling with this for 6 weeks and I almost closed my business. Or, like I'm going through chemo and just watching your dog sing made my day. Like those are the reasons that make you continue showing up. And I think that when we
Absolutely.
get so focused on the numbers and the analytics, we rob ourselves of the joy of connecting with people online.
Yes, I totally agree with that. It's a really good reminder that making all these videos is fun and silly, and sometimes there's money involved. Most of the time there's not. And you just have to focus on the fact that it's doing something bigger. It's doing something greater. And it's hard to remember that sometimes because I'm just singing The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow and my screaming dog interjects. But it does affect people in a bigger way, which is amazing. I couldn't ask for a better gift.
Yeah, it truly does impact people. And I love that you guys keep showing up. Like I said, if you guys don't follow Pam, you've got to go check out their Instagram, their TikTok. And I love that you shared honestly that, I think a lot of people try to position it that they make all this money doing content. And I know there's brand deals and there's a lot of opportunities that come, but it's not what people think in their mind, as
No
far
way.
as, yeah.
It's very few and far in between. And when you're doing this without, a manager or an agent, and you're just kind of out there for yourself, it's 10 times harder. So it's just yeah, that's not why it's done. I mean, as you can see, I still have a nine to five job. The singing dog is not making me the millionaire Simon Cowell predicted that I would be, but there's so many joys that go beyond the monetary aspect of it. And just getting to write the children's book and work on the album has just been so fun. And we wouldn't have really had that opportunity to have it reach so many people if it hadn't been for this guy.
Aw, that's so great. Well, and I can tell you too. So you probably don't know, but most of my audience knows that I have a nonprofit. We have an animal shelter where we rescue animals in a sanctuary for large species. And I can tell you, for all of those haters out there that thinks that your dog is going through torture, they would absolutely leave the room if he didn't want to sing with you. So I can tell you
Absolutely.
that's
Yes.
100% true. We have seen dogs that are scared to death of sounds, and they are not going to join in if they're scared.
They are not.
So
No way.
can you give us a little song so the audience can see what Casper does on
We
your
sure
socials.
can. We'll do a little throwback to our America's Got Talent
Yes.
time. So, Casper, you ready? When I was young, I never knew anyone. Love was just for fun. Those days are gone. Okay, now here comes the good howl. All by myself. Don't wanna be.
I love it. He gets that.
And like I said, it gets hard for him to stop.
I love it. You know what's so cute though on some of your content? Like he waits and he'll come in on the perfect time, and then sometimes he's in from the beginning. And
That's right. Sometimes he wants all the verses and the chorus. And those times where he comes in perfectly on the chorus, those are, I would say, maybe, they're not one take wonders,
Yeah.
like I said.
Yeah. Oh, it was so cute. Before we started recording, Pam's like, I can get him to sing, but I don't know if I'll be able to get him to stop once he gets started.
Yeah.
It's so fun, and you bring
such a
so much.
ham.
Yeah, and like you said, he's a little extra today. So it's bringing so much joy to so many people. Let us know how we can support you, how we can help. We talked about the album. I already told you I'm connecting you with my publisher because I think that this children's book needs to get out into the world. So hopefully we can make that happen in 2024. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience?
No, just thank you for listening, and thank you for seeing how special he is and our connection is. And we just can't wait to keep making content, whether videos or music or just funny what have yous. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think it's great too, just from the animal advocate side. I think it's so great for you to show the connection and the deep bonds that humans can really form with animals, that they're not something you own, that it's truly a bond that you can develop and that they become a part of you and your family. So I just want to thank you for that personally, because it means a lot to us for people showing that in real time of how special that the animal human connection is.
It just comes so easy with him. It definitely does.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to link all the information. Casper, it was so fun having you.
Say bye-bye, Candy.
Thank you.
Thank you.